Hello and welcome to the third instalment of the Sporting Chancers podcast presented by themeltingpress.com. I'm Conor Hayes and I'm joined by the usual suspects, James McDermott, Colm Booth and David Hughes. And we're going to look at the rugby and the football again this week.
How did James get first billing? Like, alphabetically, my name is first, both first and second.
Right, we're going to start at Lansdowne Road this week. Ireland versus Scotland, kind of meaningless game unfortunately, but Ireland won 32-14. And Colm, we're going to start with you. That's why.
Great. Good to know. Good to know.
So, what did we learn? Ireland versus Scotland. What did we learn?
We learned that Tadhg Ryan should have been starting for the entire tournament. I mean, the guy comes out. He gets his first start as a result of injury to Paul O'Connell and puts in what received a Man of the Match award, a performance that received a Man of the Match award.
It was one of those things where it just basically made a mockery of the coach, didn't it?
It did, and I mean, injuries have led Declan Kidney to quite a number of his better selection decisions in inverted commas. I mean, I remember it took both John Hayes and Tony Buckley getting injured in order for us to finally arrive at a proper tight head prop coming in and stabilising our scrum. I remember it was Dennis Leamy getting injured was the catalyst for Sean O'Brien being brought into the team. O'Connell being injured is bringing Ryan in. I mean, it really seems as though it takes an injury in order for the form guy to get a chance in a position.
Definite pattern there. What do we think of O'Mahony?
I thought he played well, particularly his first start in Six Nations. I thought it was a very good performance.
And was it the 7 performance that we've been crying out for? Not that you've been crying out for, you felt yourself, but was it?
I mean, he certainly turned over one very good ball against the Scots. But I mean, I didn't think it was, he wasn't Sam Warburton or certainly not Richie McCaw out there.
Which is disappointing because that's what we expect. I agree with you. I think this thing is a fallacy. If you don't have something, don't put in someone who's who's basically lacking in those skills just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Just a thing to note, Redden, like his kicking the ball every time he got it. Do you think he was told to do that, or do you think that was himself?
I mean, I can't speculate. Because I wasn't in the dressing room there
disappointing.
But it certainly was a tactic that was overused and poorly executed. So whether it was the coach's decision or his own decision, it didn't help the team. Although aside from that, I thought he did have another very good game, and I thought once again it made a mockery of previous selection decisions because he came in and there was a fluidity to how the team played.
I think in the first half it was a good game. It was probably the best game we've been involved in the championship in terms of quality, and I thought
probably.
I thought it was very good. But the second half was a drab sort of affair. Do you think it was Kidney's substitutions?
Well, Tommaso Leary coming on at scrum half. I mean, I thought we were rid of him.
Kidney, but he made a raft of changes, and do you think it kind of?
He made 3 changes on, was it 53 minutes?
He probably had Twickenham in mind, to be fair.
Twickenham in mind. I mean, the game wasn't won. We were only 8 points up at that stage. Admittedly, the Scots were they ended up being fairly bereft of any attacking threat. But I thought it was a risky enough decision.
Even just experimenting with Sexton at first centre.
I've heard that said, and I don't see why you'd bother.
No, I'm with you on that.
Why would you bother?
But I think if he has it in mind to play to set up like that,
why would he do that?
I don't agree with him. I don't agree that he should have it in mind. What I'm saying is, if he was planning to spring that in Twickenham, it might have made sense to give him 20 minutes.
I don't know. I mean, he's been doing this
in the Aviva.
He's been doing this throughout the Six Nations. He did it in the last World Cup. You've Ron O'Gara, who's 35 years old. He certainly won't be around at the next World Cup. You have Jonathan Sexton, who's 26 and has played his entire career at out half. I do not see how it's going to be beneficial to the Irish team, either in the short term or the long term, to have a player, your young future out half, or relatively young future out half, being shifted to inside centre to accommodate a veteran who doesn't really have a future at that level.
I think it's more to paper over Darcy than sort of develop Sexton as a first centre.
I have to ask Darcy this stage. Busted flush.
Living off your reputation.
I mean, he suffered a very bad injury in 2008 and came back and did well in the Grand Slam year, but he doesn't seem to have been able to recover his spark.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right. Well, we're going to move on to the England-France game, which I thought was actually a brilliant game. In terms of excitement, it was the quality was poor.
Awful. It was awful.
But as I say in many sports, that actually doesn't necessarily equate to how exciting a game is.
I would dispute it on the grounds that when France finally started playing, that was a thrilling and exciting game. I suppose because they were chasing a lead, but I mean, watching this, the ineptitude of their performance up to that point where they realised they had to go for it.
I was going to say, does that England result there? Does that put our result in perspective a little? And even,
I suppose it does and it doesn't. I think the commentators were mentioning that obviously there was just a 6-day turnaround for the England game. The players were let go home for 2 of those days in order to have a break. Dimitri Yashvili wasn't called up to the squad in spite of scoring 2 tries and 25 points, probably for political reasons. So I mean, it smacked of arrogance on behalf of the French selection.
Right.
Even selecting Julien Dupuis, who hadn't started a game at that level in about 2 or 3 years.
And what did you think of Owen Farrell? This is the new Great White Hope.
Yeah, I thought the English players and the English media have a tendency to completely overhype anyone of that age group who comes in and does a moderately adequate job.
I always remember David Strettle, who came in and
Danny Cipriani.
Yeah, obviously he's another great example.
Yeah, but to be honest, I probably agree with a lot of what they're saying. He really does look the real deal.
He's younger than everyone in this room. He's just 20, isn't he?
Yeah.
Could you imagine an Irishman at 20 being given all the responsibilities being given? I mean, we're so slow to show these players in. Yeah, but look at Sexton again. I don't know, something. Fitzgerald was.
Yeah, Fitzgerald was given the chance.
Yeah.
And look at him now, though.
Yeah, well, that's the other side of the coin. I mean, look at him now. You say, what has he done? What's he doing right now? He's injured. What has he done in his career? Well, he's a Test capped Lion who has a Grand Slam behind him.
Okay, but he didn't make the World Cup squad. Basically, is my point there.
Yeah, well, that's injuries. It could be a case of being exposed to too high a level too young has made him susceptible to injuries, but it could just be bad luck or a predilection to injury. I'm not sure it holds water to say that it's as a result of him being introduced to the Irish team.
No, I'm of the opinion that we're slow to introduce young players.
Yeah.
To Irish team, there's a feeling that they have to have a certain amount of experience before we can ever trust them with an Irish jersey.
Yeah,
That's across a lot of sports.
Although look at sort of my criticism of Conor Murray in previous episodes, the guy is only 22. Owen Redden doesn't have much of a future at this level. He's proved himself not to be the world's greatest scrum half. In the past, maybe we should be trusting.
There is always this vicious cycle, I suppose, and or kind of a that dilemma between starting youth, but then if you have a better guy on the bench, you should play him. It's kind of always that kind of.
I saw an interview with O'Gara where he claimed that's what's happening between him and Sexton. That was only a week ago.
Oh really?
Yeah,
it was interesting.
It was interesting.
Just onto Lancaster and his kind of. I mean, that's a great result for him personally.
Yeah.
Getting a win in Paris, as bad as France, we all agree that they were. Getting a win in Paris is a great achievement.
Very much so, yeah.
England have a great record against France, by the way. We should do something about it. We should learn something about what they do.
Yeah, big team mentality.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of an inferiority complex, ain't we? So yeah, do you think he's going to get the job? Or do you think he deserves it? Or do you think there's?
I think a lot hinges on the Irish result, because they've won their 3 away games now. They lost to Wales at home. If they lose to Ireland at home, I don't think that necessarily sets them up to get the job. If they finish the Six Nations in second place, or possibly outside chance of first place, having won 4 games, I think it'd be tough not to give them the job, having restored kind of faith in the English jersey.
Yeah, well, they've won 4 last time out, didn't they? Now they ended up winning the tournament. They'd have won 4 this time out.
Yeah.
It's not like they were going to get rid of Johnson. So yeah, I think that's fair enough. That actually leads us on to next week. How do you see it going?
Well, we have had a great record against England in recent times. If you put the 2 teams that are going to face each other down on paper and you match up the players, I mean, Tom Croft really was very influential against the French last week. He got a great try, was brilliant in the line-out. But you'd have to say, if you're choosing a team, do you want Stephen Ferris or Tom Croft? I think every time you have to go for the man mountain that is Ferris.
You're a big fan of Ferris, and
big fan.
And another, but you could see again on Saturday. You could see why he was absolutely.
He was fantastic, and he's above the level of any player on that English team. Certainly that they're currently operating at.
The big question over Ferris is the knee and how long that can hold out.
Yeah, well, just hopefully it does. The only thing I'd be really worried about against England is Manu Tuilagi in the centre. Now, I think Keith Earls, I was very, very sceptical about him at outside centre coming into the tournament, but I think he's been more than competent. He's acquitted himself well. The Darcy problem, though, if Tuilagi starts running at him, you saw the trouble that the French centres
and the Wales
and the Welsh,
they absolutely ran over us. I know McFadden was playing that day and he acted pretty poorly on the day, but there's still that issue there.
I mean personally, I'd like to see McFadden started inside centre.
Okay,
but it seems there's absolutely no chance of that happening, having regard to the whole Rog Sexton inside centre out half experiment, and McFadden coming on at the wing every time he's come on, he's gone straight to the wing.
Right, so if we just go back to France, they're in this kind of leading on to next week, but they're in a rut now. They have been in a rut for quite a while.
The World Cup aside.
Well, the World Cup aside, they lost to Tonga at the World Cup. I mean,
they very nearly beat New Zealand.
Yeah, and then with a decent referee or an impartial referee, they'd won that World Cup final.
Yeah, but
with the handicap of having Liam Mont in charge as well.
I don't think it changes the fact that they haven't played. Besides the New Zealand game, they haven't played that
you're right.
Rugby internationals in a quite considerable.
You are right.
And so, basically, are they going to change the coach again? Do they have? Is it a coaching thing, or is there something truly wrong?
Well, if you look at France's coaches over the last decade, you've had Bernard Laporte, who wasn't a typically French coach. I mean, he drilled the team, and probably drilled a lot of the natural French flair out of them. But admittedly, he was quite successful up until the World Cup, where going in the semi-final and home World Cup, when they really should have won, was not a great way to sign off. Now there was the Lièvremont debacle, which I don't think there's anyone arguing that was a good appointment. And now Philippe Saint-André has been appointed. And he's very much in the Laporte mould of he's a sort of utilitarian kind of coach. He's not going to bring French flair to the fore. And this set against the background of Fabien Galtier being available.
I was going to say this guy looks the real deal.
He really does. I mean, what he's done at Montpellier on a tiny budget, he got them to second. He got them to the final of the top 14 last year against Toulouse.
I couldn't believe when he didn't get the job.
It was stunning. In fairness to the French Federation, I think they did offer Guy Noves the job, and he turned it down. Now, sort of thank God for us as Irish fans and competitors in the Six Nations, he didn't get the job, because I'd be fearful of what France could do to us with that guy in charge.
Right. So we're going to go on to next week now. Wales on Saturday they just did the job basically. They got it done. Italy played all right, but they could have been there till 2 o'clock in the morning. They wouldn't have scored a try. Kind of depressing to watch in many ways. So with Wales, do you think there's any chance? Because France always have a big performance in them.
That's it. Yeah.
Is there any chance they could do Wales? And Wales are going to win the tournament, obviously.
Yeah.
Unless we get a hammering, which I don't think we'll get a hammering no matter what.
I don't think so. No.
So Wales won the tournament, but obviously everyone knows that, like England last year, it's always kind of bittersweet if you win the tournament, but you end up.
Yeah, lose the last game and miss out in the Grand Slam, Well, I think when it's France, so there's definitely a chance. I mean, if they do turn up, there has to be a chance. And the one thing I'd say against that is this is the 4th game in the row for France coming up against Wales. It's in Wales. It's actually something which will work against Ireland, I think, the 4th game in a row. It'll be more pronounced for the French. They might have greater strength and depth, but their players are absolutely flogged in the top 14. They really don't get a break, and I think it could show in the Millennium Stadium.
I think so. I think there still seems to be a titanic struggle between the French clubs and the French national team, and I wonder is this the big kind of issue which has been holding them back for a while. But yeah, we'll have to see. I suppose maybe they do have that one game in them. So we should just mention the under-20s won 4-4. And it's a showdown next week. Basically, unfortunately, if they lose, they also lose the championship because England trashed everyone they played except for France, where they lost it. But they trashed everyone they played. Their points difference is nearly it's a lot anyway. So they're going, if they beat us, they'll win the tournament. If we win, we'll get the Grand Slam in the tournament. So that's exciting. And Shane Layden, who you mentioned last week, had another brilliant game on Friday. So hopefully he's fit.
Right.
He's going to come out and do the business.
The only thing is England, I believe I think they still have 10 or 12 of the team or the squad who went to the last under-20s World Cup and finished second to the All Blacks. Right. So I mean, it's going to Twickenham. It's a very tough.
It's Adams Park, but yes, no.
Okay.
But,
excuse me.
I couldn't resist. So right, okay. Well, we're going to move on. We're going to move on from rugby now. Kind of wrapped everything up there. Onto the football. All right, lads. I have to ask you, Roberto Mancini. If he doesn't win the league with the City team, he deserve the sack?
All the money spent probably because if you look at the United team they're up against, it's a superb team, as you alluded to last week. City still be winning the league every day of the week.
Yes,
it's Mancini was employed to win the league. He's been knocked out of the Champions League very early on.
They'll probably win it on a Saturday or Sunday though. But as opposed to any day of the week. But yes, no, absolutely.
Or every day of the week, which would be an incredibly successful season.
Yeah.
It's quite a common saying. So.
Okay. What do you think? Anyone else than that? I think if you look at the standard of the competition he has to face, I mean, it's pretty pathetic that he's not ahead of 10 years to go.
If he doesn't, it'll be remarkable given the culture that's in modern day football, especially with new rich owners expecting trophies. Like, it could be a trophy this season because Europa League is the only trophy left if they don't win the league.
They still have a chance there. I think they might win journalism, but there's very good teams left in it.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I know. I mean, it's still on the cards they could end this without a trophy. I still think they have a very good chance in the league. Obviously, 1 point is not a huge, massive mountain as
although the fixture list that is coming up.
We said last week there's no point reading into the fixture list, and I think it was shown at the weekend when City didn't pick up points to Swansea.
Although I would have said again,
Swansea and Swansea.
I would have said, like, look at the Swansea way. I mean, Chelsea. I think United were the only team to win there. What a huge win that looks like now. I think Fernandes got the winner. It was the first half of the season, but just looks like a massive win, much like Ireland's result in Armenia in the qualifiers. Like, it didn't seem that big at the time, but it's magnified by the results afterwards. Just on Mancini, see, this is the thing. I'm starting to wonder. Okay, at Inter he won 3 leagues in a row. That is a great achievement, but he was helped by Calciopoli, he was helped by the scandal, and his record in Europe is absolutely.
It's abysmal.
Yeah, isn't it? It's atrocious, incling this season. It's atrocious. So I'm just wondering, if they don't win the league, maybe they should look elsewhere. But so she's never really asked for a manager to be sacked. But I think whatever happens this year, they probably will go and win it next year. But it's like you wonder if Mancini really is the man there. Do anyone think that he needs to bring Tadhg back in, or would that be a distraction and make it even worse?
Today we've seen Michael Richards calling for him. And I think it's clear Michael Richards seems to be quite an influential person in the dressing room, along with Joe Hart. Genuinely does say people laugh at that.
Which is worrying.
Which is a strange. But it's the fact that he's an English player. The other way always English teams are. But I think Tadhg needs to come back. To be honest, with experience he brings of winning trophies.
The away from home record for me.
They've locked goals away from home, particularly
4 in the last.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How do you bring back in a guy who hasn't played football in 3 or 4 months?
Played lots of golf.
He played lots of golf, and I don't know how good the golf he was playing was in the interim, but he wasn't playing great football before he left. There was a reason he was on the bench. I don't think you can see him as this knight in shining armour.
And to bring home a league with Ferguson and United alongside them, you need real harmony in your squad. And people always say, "Oh, it's overrated." People always say, temperament is overrated. But I really disagree. The game is a mental game at the start. First of all, there are people calling Balotelli to be dropped as a distraction, right? And I'm kind of beginning to think maybe they have a point. Bringing another distraction back in, and eventually he will have to dislodge one of Dzeko, Aguero, or Balotelli, and whoever's left out will not be best pleased, as they've shown nothing but commitment to the club.
Zeko had an argument on the bench the same night as the Bayern Munich thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't agree that the Tevez thing within the dressing room is such a big deal. I think it's a big deal for the likes of Mancini, David Platt. I don't think it's a huge deal for the players themselves. I think they've seen... it's been blown out of proportions. They seem to like him a lot. They've been talking about him in interviews. They seem to be fairly positive toward. I know this is always they're going to try to put that up or push it up in interviews, but companies talked about him. Obviously, Michael Richards today and Joe Hart has in the past as well. So I don't think it's really a question of them at war with them at all. Even at training, they were joking and messing about.
Just as you mentioned, company. I think that's who Man City need back, not Tevez.
Yeah.
Savage is a disaster zone.
Yeah, and he is. No, he's very young, and we should be careful. As I said, you shouldn't criticise him, but he does seem to be just out of his depth completely. And the thing is, though, it's amazing that you can still spend £250 million, whatever it is, and you're still really, really reliant on one footballer. That's quite refreshing, in my opinion.
A £6 million footballer who predates the spending splurge.
They could have easily.
Mark Hughes, that'll go down as one of his greatest achievements, bringing him into the.
They could easily have picked up another backup defender. I don't mean to discourage Savage if he is listening, as you seem to fear he might be. But just keep with him, man. You might make it. And that's what I'm going to say.
They got rid of Anua. Who is a much
solid. He's solid. He's reliable. You know, he's not gonna give a short pass back. He's not gonna get. He's not gonna lose the ball. But he's also not gonna run the pitch, which they're looking at. That's not the skillful player they're looking at.
YouTube that goal against Chelsea if you want to see him on the pitch.
Yeah, but no, go back to Mancini.
I think Anua goes back to Gary Cook. I really think that could have been very beneficial to the club just to have kept him sweet.
Mm-hmm. Oh dear, yeah, that was just, Gary Cook is just one of these. It's so typical. Like, you want to learn about modern football, just have a look at Gary Cook, the figure, the man.
He's like the bad guy in Lazy Town. If you ever seen Lazy Town, yeah.
Okay, right. I haven't.
Take my word for it.
Okay, no, I'm sure. I trust your opinion completely. Just yesterday during the game. There was a goal disallowed for offside, and it was a brilliant decision.
It was a favour.
Yeah, she smashed it. No, but no, this is actually the point I wanted to make. The patronising, the kind of patronising, like Stan Collymore was like, well, she certainly knows the rules, and it's just like, it's ridiculous. She's doing her job. Just let her do it. There's no reason why she shouldn't be able to do her job as much as everyone else. She made a good decision, yes. That's her job. That's what she's supposed to do.
I think we would have seen 1/4 of the replays we saw yesterday had it been a male linesman. I mean, it was a black and white offside decision. It didn't need 10 replays. And look how well she's done there. And the zoom in on Mancini's face, which I think had a bit of a, what's she done? Look at her there, love. and then
talking about a tribute.
It was alluded to a match of the day. I wonder what he's thinking now. But she got it bang on.
I think I feel really sorry for her.
She's been consistently good, and she's made a couple of big time decisions.
But that's the whole point. She should be consistently good. That's her job.
But when you compare her to the lines from the QPR game,
absolutely, linesmen make awful errors. But linesmen, actually, I'm very impressed with. I think that the linesman is the hardest job. You basically have to do something that's humanly impossible. Humanely impossible. You have to look at two places at once.
After Calciopoli, you're not having a great day here.
That's the argument UEFA had to bring in the extra linesman.
Calciopoli.
Yeah, but even if you had an extra linesman, I don't see how that would possibly work. I mean, you have one linesman signal to the other linesman at what exact second the ball left the foot of the passer. I mean,
well, it's more for the goal line decisions. It's more for Blatter seems to be fairly determined now. Eventually, they've got to stamp it out.
What Conor was saying, I think, was just the impossibility of judging offsides consistently all the time.
But they do a very good job.
They do an
excellent job. My point, which I was going to make, was that they actually get more right than I would ever expect. But anyway, we're going to go. And of course, we all know Stan Collymmore's feminist credentials. James, are Swansea the greatest team ever?
I don't know about Swansea, but Brendan Rodgers certainly has made them into one of the greatest club sides I've ever seen. Yeah. The love fest from BBC, it was sickening. No, I like Brendan Rodgers, I do, and I like Swansea. But
that's very big, James.
But there's just something ridiculous about, like, they zoomed in on Brendan Rodgers as he took notes, and the quote read, "He takes notes. He knows the importance of communication."
Yeah, and that's nonsense because Harry Redknapp can't read or write, and he has Spurs at third. I agree. I think the point is this time last season, Owen Coyle was a managerial genius. You know, now we know. You know, now we know that he's not.
Phil Brown at Hull.
He's not.
Phil Brown at Hull. That lasted 2 weeks longer. Would be similar to where we are now.
Yeah,
I mean, these things happen.
No, I think that it's probably a little bit unfair to Brendan Rodgers to make those comparisons when you look at the wage budget he's operating within and the squad of players he has. He has at his disposal. Phil Brown at Hull had the 6th biggest wage budget in the league. Bolton under Coyle was an established Premier League club with a number of big players. What Brendan Rodgers has done is he's come up a bit like Hull, but they haven't splurged on big name players who are past it. They've relied on players.
But my point is, focus isn't on how well he's managing the club and keeping it ticking over. My point is, he's apparently brought this philosophy of football that can't be matched anywhere else. They keep the ball brilliantly. They really do.
Leon Britton's passing percentage is the best. It's 0.4 better than Zavi's. Zavi's attempted twice as much passes, but it's still because obviously guys are on the ball. And
it is refreshing to see teams like that play. But I just I think
been over. I think the Rodgers thing is overdone again, because look at the way he was at Reading. He
was sacked at Reading.
He was sacked at Reading, and Reading played poor football, which they shouldn't have been doing. They were playing long balls up, and it's completely different way he's playing at Swansea. So maybe he's just adapting rather than.
Do you know the Swansea manager before Rodgers came in?
Was Martinez?
Oh, sorry, before Sosa.
Yeah, it was Martinez.
And so there was a tradition, and obviously Sosa came in. So there was a tradition of playing decent football.
Exactly. Yeah, the passing culture is what immigrant.
Well, we're not. Me and James and Dave, I think we're not. You know, this isn't a great achievement or whatever. It is. It's fine. It's just let's wait and see. I mean, the way they're touting him up for big jobs already. Now he rejected the Chelsea job, and fair play to him. He said, I want to build my career, not destroy it, which is a nice thing, refreshing thing to hear. But I just as I said, I always think you got to wait and see. And the example I always use is Ipswich. George Burley. George Burley was manager of the season. He got Ipswich up to 5th, and the next season they finished 19th. Yeah, and there's always that danger. So
there are countless times in BBC make these new heroes, and sometimes they get it right. Cristiano Ronaldo was a hero long before he should have been, and they got it right ultimately. And they take this, we call this when he was just a creative player with no final product. We were the ones saying he will make it to be one of the greatest players on earth. But then you have your Burleys and you have countless other fallen heroes from BBC's.
And Sky and all that.
An interesting point, though, I think, is that Ipswich had a couple of standout players in the game. Holland was obviously consistently good. Tice Bramble at that point was very. Swansea don't have many players that maybe would go adapting to other teams. They mightn't lose as many players this summer, so could actually play into Rodgers' hands and might end up being a consistent Swansea, consistent Premiership club, which could.
I think actually, and in my opinion, the bigger achievement is Lambert's. Now they're not playing as good football. I will admit that. But he's gone up 2 divisions.
Well, that's incredible.
Double promotion,
incredible.
And it's a club. You remember he took over after they lost 7-1 at home.
On the first day of the season. It's a great story.
Yeah.
Colchester, just in case people don't know, Colchester went there under Lambert, won 7-1, and Delia Smith and whoever else was in the crowd was like, "Hey, that guy's good. We'll get him." And
look at Colchester are now.
It's sad. It's terrible for Colchester, but great for Norwich. I don't really care either way, I suppose. But no, I mean, it's a great achievement, and he's got them up 2 divisions, and they've managed to. And they are going to stick there, which is great.
And he's still a young manager, and you can see really the attention to detail he puts into.
And he's Scottish, which apparently is an amazing advantage for some unknown reason.
Of course, he's Champions League winner, Lambert.
Of course, yeah.
That Dortmund team, which you absolutely adore.
I did adore that.
But he was very good in that team. And
he was excellent, yeah. I mean, he has experience of winning. Obviously Champions League with Dortmund, but of course with Celtic as well. Yeah. I mean, he came back to them after a fairly barren spell, but his reappearance coincided
with the First League.
Yeah, with the First League title.
Right, so we're going to move on to Spurs. James, 2 weeks ago you said, well, it's a North London derby, these things happen. Last week you pointed to Parker. We all pointed to Parker and Bale being out. But this week they lost it the 3rd time in a row. Are they in crisis? Is this crisis mode? As everyone likes to put people in crisis mode. But is there something radically wrong there?
It appears that Spurs are once again Spurs, and Harry hasn't really solved that. I mean, their season used to end in March, and it's happened again.
But they were certainly there's always this thing that whatever they're given, whatever breaks they get, they always manage to muck it up
completely.
Some way. Yeah. And it does. They're only Arsenal 1 point behind them now, and Chelsea. They seem to. Certainly, Matteo seems to have tightened up the defence at the very least. So if they can they still have good players there, so they can put results together. you know.
It was interesting because I even said that I thought Harry may have been a bit unlucky with the way the Arsenal match went. Even the substitutions, I thought that had Santos sat, maybe they would have got more. I think he was actually genuinely outmanoeuvred by Moyes at the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because, I mean, Moyes does set up his teams against big teams very well. I mean, and it's detriment against smaller teams that he always has kind of, you know, this method of setting up his teams to play specifically against big teams.
Yeah, just on Moyes, he's 10 years at Everton now. It's astounding. It's a brilliant achievement because Everton traditionally would be quite trigger happy and
completely.
Also, you know, and he's 10 years there. Do we think if he got a shot at a big club that he'd be actually really good, or do we think that this is his level, that he's used to that, and if he went somewhere bigger like Hodgson, he'd get destroyed?
Just on the point I made a second ago, his best attribute in my books is that he seems to be able to set up his teams to deal with other teams, the way other teams play. And I'm not sure that when Everton go out to face weaker teams, they are comfortable being the team that has to set the tempo or set the side or dictate the play. You look at their last 7 games, they've beaten City, Chelsea and Spurs, drawn against the likes of QPR and Blackburn and I can't remember the other two, Villa.
Yeah, mid-table teams.
Yeah.
The point stands.
I still think United job would suit him well. I genuinely think he could be Ferguson's successor. In terms, I don't think he'd suit Liverpool. I don't think he'd suit Chelsea or an Arsenal, obviously. But I think
the
foundations are already there. It's a
there's a lot of pressure though.
A huge amount of pressure, obviously, but because the fan is quite a little bit in the Fergie mould, obviously with the nationality and all that. But
similar accents.
It's very similar accents, both from Glasgow, obviously. But I think I just think he gets the best out of play. I know you've been saying that Everton have dropped points against the likes of Villa and all, but I still think he has that attribute of getting the best out of United's crop. Well, he wouldn't get the best out of Chelsea's team. I think he's a great kind of motor.
One thing I'd like to say is obviously United don't have any egos. Certainly, they've workhorses, who toe the line, and in the mould of Wayne Rooney or Nani.
There is that issue with Moyes that he'd have to manage Wayne Rooney.
But I'd also like to raise the point of or the record of Gordon Strachan in this context. I think Moyes' record is probably superior to what Strachan's was before he went to Celtic. Similarly, Strachan's managerial career had been spent largely dealing with life in the lower echelons of the Premier Division. As a manager of one of those clubs, he had to set up in a certain way in order to combat teams who had better resources. Went to Scotland. He did not have a good start to his career there because he was adjusting to managing the dominant team in the league. But if you look at his actual record over the course of his tenure there, it probably eclipses Martin O'Neill's.
It definitely does. He's incredibly unlucky to be handed out of there. I think again it was the Aberdeen thing.
Yeah, and I just to finish off the point, I think that certainly Moyes appears to me to be a manager of sufficient capability to do something similar, to adapt himself
even in the English
to
league,
a bigger even within the English league.
Okay. The difference between a step up to Celtic and a step up to United, I mean, I actually genuinely believe there's only one person with the ego to take over for South Ferguson, and that's Mourinho. Whether he'd be accepted or not, because I mean, you have to stay there for 25 years before you can even match Ferguson. I mean, who would possibly step into that role? I know.
I'm not necessarily saying United.
I know, yeah, but I'm just picking up on Dave's point.
But just to answer what you said previously. Obviously there's a bigger step up in terms of the class of footballer you're dealing with, but I was merely talking about his ability to or the ability of a manager to adapt their style of play when they move club. It would be similar playing as Celtic, being the Celtic manager playing Scottish teams as would be being the Man City manager playing
Strachan, going back to Strachan spent a lot of money at Coventry and Southampton. It's overlooked. Southampton were a strong mid-table Premiership club, and Coventry, now he spent a lot of money at Coventry, now find themselves in a lot of financial difficulty.
He did a bit of a miracle job in Coventry in the 90s. They were the team that always stayed up. Yeah. I don't know if he bought Keane. I only remember buying Keane.
As if he was a Belgian player as well. I can't remember his name. He was a lot of
money. He bought Keane and Bellamy and then sold them both on at a profit.
It's a kind of, we've kind of gone off the track a little, but it's definitely an interesting. I kind of hope Moyes does get a go. I mean, Everton, they're a great club and he's done really well with them, but they just never have any money for him. And I'd like to see if he could just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Last thing we're going to really discuss is Athletic Bilbao went to Old Trafford last Thursday and played United off the park.
I was watching them against Osasuna there,
and they were rubbish.
Llorente came on and
it was an interesting, just again off the point, but it was an interesting that they rested their 3 best players for the Europa League, even though they were going for 4th. Whereas in the English game, you'd rest your players in the Europa League and you'd go for 4th. It's an interesting kind of way, the different ways, the different attitudes of the clubs. But anyway, English clubs this year have been woeful in Europe, declining standards, even from last year, but even from when they dominated the second half of the last decade.
Yeah.
Do we think it's is it a terminal decline basically, or is it just this is kind of season's an aberration?
I think it's almost a mixture of both. Because if you look at this, I know it's sitting on the fence a lot, but if you look at it, just start off, we look at the likes of Stoke and Birmingham getting away from Europa League, right? Stoke, everyone's laughing. But Stoke had gotten through. Stoke lost to Valencia. Were very competitive against Valencia. The Stoke reserve team who almost went and beat Valencia. Let's be honest, Valencia struggled. It was completely Stoke reserve team. Birmingham came within inches of really getting to the next round of the league. Who of course Birmingham in the Championship.
Yeah, they were also playing poor enough teams. As in they were playing poor enough. They weren't
playing their first team.
I'm still marvelling at the mental gymnastics.
Wait,
to go between two plays.
No, it's really
to be not bullying Dave. Yeah. Let him finish his point.
Somewhere between black and white.
Completely, it's mauve.
It's great.
Mauve is good.
No,
sorry.
So I'm colourblind. Your point is that the bigger teams, their standards but the overall standards of the smaller teams have actually gotten better.
Completely. That's exactly what I'm trying to make.
Right.
Is that
that's a completely sensible argument.
Yeah, I feel very small now.
It's a sensible argument I disagree with.
Okay.
I have to say.
Yeah, you think is it a more terminal decline then?
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea of terminal decline, there's a huge amount of money in the English game, and it doesn't look like that's necessarily drying up. I mean, Sky are still pumping large amounts of cash.
A lot of the money is false economy though, isn't it?
In terms of what their actually day-to-day spending is, but the league's ability to raise revenue it far exceeds that of any other league in terms of attendances. It's the most attended league. In terms of foreign monies, it absolutely dwarfs the TV revenues any other league can bring in. And similarly, the collective bargaining has meant that they've managed to milk Sky, or there's sort of been a symbiotic relationship in terms of how Sky and the Premier League have profited in monetary terms. As such, if they can keep managing the money side of it that well, you'd have to say if there's money there, people will go there, people with talent will go there. So to say it's a terminal decline, I don't know. I just don't see it.
A point on the top teams or top players are getting the tax free, the 80%.
In other countries.
In Spain, in terms of getting the taxes, not even close to what they get in England, which is a huge part of supposedly Ronaldo leaving, all this sort of stuff, which. City may be able to pay the way, but I don't think. I think with you've seen with the strike this year in La Liga, with the over TV bar, I think in a couple of years' time it could be a completely different picture, to be honest.
And the Bundesliga is going to. There's been this thing for the last 5 years that the Bundesliga is going to rise. I wonder will it actually eventually happen. They are very well run. It's just the teams. I think it's because the league is so competitive actually in Germany. I think teams can't get a run at being in the Champions League except Bayern Munich.
But look at Dortmund. Look at Dortmund.
Hopefully they will get the run.
They lost in the group stage, not in the group stage of the Champions League, and they lost a lot of good players this season as well.
But
they're still 5 points clear.
Yeah.
So
what's the name of the manager? Is it Klopp?
Klopp.
It is. Yeah, he looks a really good coach.
Super young coach.
It's hard for a club to go to be the dominant club in Germany for such a long time. They can attract glamour players consistently. You know what I mean?
That's basically. But it is such a well-run league, and it's exciting. I mean, it seems like Mönchengladbach coming up this year and finishing third, and it is, and that's very exciting. But it does mean that their chances of European success are damaged unless you're Bayern Munich, where you have this unlimited.
There's conversions in Germany.
Where you're the best run club in the world.
I think they're certainly up there. Yeah,
I think they're
Blackburn Rovers as well. But
Rangers as well. I think it's up there.
I think Munich are the only club in the top 20 in the money list that has virtually zero debt and runs a profit every year.
That would be the Germans, all right.
Yeah, that's it.
But interesting point.
That's probably guaranteed by Irish banks or something.
An interesting point in Bayern, though. Bayern consistently buy the best players from their teams every year, yet they don't seem to manage as many league titles. Obviously, they do, but they're not consistently. They're not the United. They're not winning 3 in a row. They're not.
Since Hitzfeld, I know Hitzfeld came back a second time, but I'm not sure if they ever worked a second time. But I'm not sure they've ever had that manager who can. They've had McGath and they've had Van Gaal, who's always kind of a loose cannon.
Yeah,
he can do good stuff, but he's always
exactly.
just So I think if they got in, they basically need a manager. You know, who would stay there for 5 or 6 years.
They need a stable, good man, stability.
And they win it. They win it every year.
Completely.
But Dortmund are definitely going to be that challenge because it doesn't look like the manager doesn't look like he wants to go to Bayern, and they have the players. I think that's basically going to wrap it up, guys. That's all we've got time for. My thanks to James, Dave, and Colm.
Last again, cheers.
Yeah. So before I go, I just want to plug our.
Or is that like when you have the big name at the start and then the second biggest name in the film, or maybe the bigger name in the film coming at the end? So that's what people leave with.
I just did it on purpose to annoy you.
I was hoping for a final question, like usual. But okay.
No. We ran out of time. It's the end. I just want to say to follow our Twitter account. It's being followed by the fake Mario Balotelli, which I'm pretty happy about. And then have a look. Subscribe on iTunes, obviously, if you're listening to this, please, on YouTube or on
Didn't
iTunes.
you set up a fake Mario Balotelli?
No.
2 weeks ago.
No, that was me. Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe your name should go first. So this was the Sporting Conscious podcast presented by themeltingpress.com. We'll speak to you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.